Whoop. Not too much, too much, too much. Good enough. All right. Smells like foam. Hello again. Wheels 1769. 2 days in a row. Awesome. Yes. I thought about just working on this, but as I promised in the last stream, I try to do as much work as possible live just to see the whole progress of things. And since there's a couple things I wanted to look at and try, I had no choice. So, that's how it be today. So far this morning, just for the sake of just to kind of see the big picture better, I did take off the top rail holder thing and also the rail here, just to see what the profile looked like as is. So we need a little more room here. Of. Maybe if things are slow next week, next Monday, Tuesday, we'll just do a clean up the table stream again. Always promotes nice chat and discussion, and gives me more room to work, so everybody wins. Good day, Green Hill. Good morning, Ed! Exclamation to you too. And thank you again for your help yesterday, Ed. It's very, very beneficial. Okay, wow, 9 people already. Good heavens, you guys are pretty snappy response this morning. This morning for me. I don't know what time it is for you guys. Good morning, Drew Benson. Drew Benson. Drew Benson. The name's familiar. Did you make a Strife Centurion integration that was very, very, very nice looking? Are you that Drew Benson? Or am I thinking of another name that just seems to have that connotation? Good morning, Chris. 3 in the morning, can't sleep still. Hey, I had that last night, which was actually yesterday for you, apparently. Yeah, ended up moving to the couch. Just couldn't get comfortable, couldn't sleep, just couldn't do anything. So, yeah, didn't sleep too good last night, but also I had a lot of creative things going on. Drew Benson, yes, sir. Ah, excellent. Yes, that's a dandy. I did like that one. Can't remember what I was working on at the time that you shared that, but yeah, it was. That's the one that has a body kit of some kind. I'm trying to remember how that worked. Is that the one that was had pieces of a body kit and it was hydro dipped or had some kind of fancy paint? That was a good one. That was a good one. Morning, Mr. Boomtendo. Okay, so as I was explaining a little bit ago, I had a fit of creative passion with this morning, and was going to go hog wild with it. But since yesterday I promised I'd try to do as much work on this on stream live as possible, I decided to just fire up a stream instead. So, pretty happy with how this came out overall. I did some more last night. I came back after the stream and did just a little bit more fitting here, trimmed this back a little bit, just kind of didn't really change a whole lot, just kind of fitted stuff a little bit better, just kind of fine tuning and stuff, so you really didn't miss anything. But this is still very, very nice. But I did this morning shave off the carry handle mounts and the top rail here just to get kind of a cleaner profile, so we can kind of choose our own adventure here instead of being bound by the kind of oddly tall rail riser here and the weird bump here that nobody likes anyway. Going to bed, Boomtendo. All right. Well, as long as you can hang around, you're welcome to hang around. Sorry about the night shift. I've been doing a little bit of that lately as well, off and on, and I hate it. So I can totally know how you're feeling. So, pretty happy with how this fits. Balance overall. Stock seems a bit heavy, even though the Alphasquawk has a very, I guess you'd call it a lightweight. It's not a really heavy looking. And in videos and streams and stuff, I talk about heavy and light and stuff like that, and it's not like physically heavy. It's more of a stylistically. Whereas like, trying to think, oh shoot, I'm just trying to look around at things. Like the Raven is a very well balanced stock. That's why it's really popular, and why I'm looking at the wall seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 blasters using the Raven as strictly a stock. It's because it's just proportionally very well balanced with the majority of in-strike style blasters and things like that. Whereas like the Firefly tends to be a bit heavier. It's a bit taller. It's got a lot of real estate. It's just very kind of bulky, but it just appears stylistically heavy. Whereas like that that worker stock that's just two poles with a pad on the end, I would consider a lightweight stock. It's just there's not much material, and so that's just to be clear of what I'm talking about. Lightweight and heavy, not talking about heavy stock meaning it's back heavy, handling it just aesthetically. But yeah, so this is still a bit heavy, and I think because it's on the end of like two skinny portions, and then it kind of gets bulky back here, so it kind of has a bit, I don't know, I don't know. I still feel I need a little more material up front. I was looking at the picture I posted on the Facebook and Instagram last night. There's just kind of a follow-up to the stream, and I was really just analyzing it, and I do need a little more material up front, which works out good, because even though I like how this was looking, and I did have that on there, I like this style, which is why I did it to this one over here, and I just like it a lot. And I'll probably do something else cooler with this eventually. This was my original Modulus that I ended up getting that because I told the wife. This was back before, back when it was a lot easier to get blasters early, like when Walmart would have them in the back room for like a month before they'd actually get released and put on the shelf. But if you had the BrickSeek codes and stuff, you could sneak in there. And I told my wife, hey, this thing's supposed to be out. BrickSeek shows that they have it. Can I get it? And she says, if you can find it, you can have it. But if it's not on the shelves, you can't have it. And so I went in there, talked to the people in the back, and they said, yeah, cool, we'll drag that out. And they dragged it out. And then she was like, oh, darn, you were right. And I was like, yeah, darn right, I'm right. And so anyway, so I don't want to do too much cutting on it as far as turning it into something it isn't, because it does have a touch of emotional-ish memories and stuff. But I also hated this extra little addition here, so that was a bunch of nonsensical information for no purpose. Anyway, the important part is what we got here. I do want to add a little bit to the front here, and it kind of turned out not super intentional. I mean, it's not the stream title here today is Barracuda, and that was just an image that flashed in my head when I was looking at this morning. Was just kind of the long, lean, just a lot of parallel lines, or I guess it's very skinny blaster, I guess. It's not like tall and has a lot of up and downs and stuff. It's very streamlined. And I was looking at the front of this, and it's just almost like a set of jaws. And I was looking, and I thought, you know, if you separated this top section, the bottom section, and slid the top one back a little bit, it would give it kind of that weird underbite that barracudas, you know, the kind of gnarly looking aggressive fish things tend to have. And I thought, well, that'd be kind of a cool stylistic choice to kind of give it a name, a bit of a personality. And so I think we're going to try to do that. Also, at the same time, we might change the height or the relationship between the height-wise between the two. But so I was looking at it, and when I was first mocking things up yesterday, it felt like this line here was going to line up with this top here pretty close. But when I actually held the barrel, you know, the faux barrel in here, lined up with the flywheel cage, it turned out it's going to mount a lot lower. And so we're going to end up with a lot of this stair stepping that I talk about once in a while that I don't tend to like. But and so I thought, okay, if we separate the two and we can change the relationship here a little bit, or at least have that flexibility, then there again we kind of choose our own adventure and put this top piece where it looks best, and also fit the bottom jaw, so to speak, where we need it to work best with the lines and everything. So we're going to lose this little piece, which is kind of too bad-ish, but I'm not super duper heartbroken. I mean, if we wanted something like that, we could build something if we needed to, or, I don't know. Like I said, not super heartbroken, but it's something that I'm willing to sacrifice to make this thing look cooler. This was the piece here that I removed from here, and I'm pretty sure that I can use this little notch to my advantage, open it up a little bit more. Probably open it that, because what I can do is it's just the right length. I don't know if this will show up on stream very well, but if I tuck this down, you know, whether notch this or notch out between here on this bump, and set that down there, then we can kind of utilize this little hook forward. That's very subtle, but I kind of like, just because it makes the rail just look a little jazzy. Also, we will be gaining a screw port in this top area here where there isn't anything now. So that'll make that a little more structural, and it'll kind of finish it off, and this angle here will line up pretty well and should kind of help tie this whole section together. So that'll give us a rail that doesn't have the weird little humpy bumps up and down that I don't necessarily care for, because for one thing they're a pain in the neck to sand and look nice because there's so many mold lines in there. So that'll be kind of cool and clean, and this here we'll probably just use some sheet material and fill that and leave it smooth, unless we can figure out something else neat and clever to do with it or something. I don't know. Not overly concerned because it's just a hole that you only see from the top right now, so it's not going to affect the stylistic choices moving ahead. It's just one of those where when we start closing up the bodywork, we say, oh yeah, we got that dang hole we need to fill because we didn't find anything else cooler to do with it. So, I think for starters, I reckon just separate this. There we go. Okay. Not sure how long we were off, if anybody was paying attention. Did that freeze up after I went on my giant dialogue about where I'm going to cut and why? Okay, lost a couple. I don't blame you. Okay. There again, if you missed the whole thing, I'm going to cut this guy out down, so it's going to be a bit noisy for a second. Okay. Okay. So just for the sake of mocking up, we're sitting about like less, just to see if my stylistic decision of sticking this underneath is going to really gain us anything cool. It actually kind of does. I mean, for whatever reason, I mean, I've been doing a lot of, like I said, artistic decisions of having kind of a back cut on the front end. I just think it's kind of a cool, aggressive line. So we do have a bit of this, even though it's not an actual physical line, it's just the, I don't know, it's the thing. So I guess the other decision is how much length do we want to add? We already have the flywheel cage right about, leaving the barrel right about here. So we already have about that much barrel. So we don't want to add a whole lot more, but I guess at the same time, we can leave this much barrel, even if we cut this extra little doodad off, and then leave this open, I reckon, because it is smooth. Since we took off, we can sand those guys smooth, and yeah, that's not too obtrusive. If we leave this kind of open, it wouldn't be acting as a faux barrel. I think if we had a full barrel the whole length, it would be, you know, barrel drag like crazy. But I think if we leave it open, that'll give it a little more room for the dart to move around. So, I mean, that's an option. Trying to eyeball things. I'm kind of seeing this line here where it comes and does a little zigzag up, a little bit of dog leg. If we can tie into that, about there, that puts us pretty close. Yeah, doggone. Okay, yeah, that puts the, technically, it still puts the barrel even with this surface here, but it's a bit close. I mean, I do want to have the jaws, so to speak. I don't want to have them too far apart, because I think that'll make it look a bit flimsy, and also we'll have to have some kind of support, I think, if you have that much material out there flopping around independent. I think if we keep them a little bit closer as possible. So, have that around about there. What's the, look at our width situation and see how these parts are going to relate. We're actually going to be pretty darn close anyway. So that's not too bad. There again, I'm looking at this line here, right next to the rail, and these lines here. So, that's close enough, I think, that we can work with. Reckon. Then also, if we leave that length, that also lets this little bit of this kind of a cheek looking piece here will start to kind of cover up where the barrel exits, and so it'll kind of tie in together and kind of disguise it a little bit, so it's not just like, look at this thing hanging out. It just kind of will tuck in a little bit to where it's still like, hey, here's the barrel. And this acts as more of a break or a guard or whatever you want to use, your weird sci-fi language and everything. Since we've already gone this far on this one, I think I'm going to go ahead and trim this one loose as well, so we can use these as assemblies, kind of like I did here, to kind of see what the width is going to look like, and be able to move around the piece a little more easily. So, Dremel time. Okay. this guy. It'd be nice to add something here fairly close. So we have 1, 2, 3 screw ports, so it'd be cool to either have this one, or even that one would be acceptable, depending on how short we want to go. And again, part of me wants to try to keep this line as consistent as possible, but I don't know if we can really have it as high up as I would like, because that leaves the barrel very, very, very much exposed and kind of hanging out there. Puts it very, very close to the barrel, so it'll kind of look like the barrel is sunken down in the jaws area, which may or may not be a bad thing. So that fits about like that. This fits about like... Actually, that sizes up pretty okay. For one, that puts this screw port right here close to the joint, so it'll keep the front of the blaster closed up here. It also puts the top in a good relationship to the bottom to have that kind of hook jaw on it, that kind of underbite. And it also puts the bottom here in a good proximity to this, to where the jaws aren't too open, and it also makes this line here, line up here, pretty okay, just kind of eyeballing it. I reckon since this screw port is so close to the end of the blaster, even if we have this about here, oh, that's gonna, I reckon they'll be tied together. Man, bad part is there's this chunk missing out of here because of the flip out cylinder deal. And that's not going to affect that. I was a bit concerned for a minute when I first started cutting this apart, because there is the dropout cylinder here and not on that side, and just the asymmetry of this component. Oh, Ed, is the chat too boring for you? So yeah, I'm thinking pretty heavy on that right now. So we'll wrap around part of this, I think, but so we're going to lose this screw port and be cutting out some of this, I believe, in order to overlapping joints at some point bust, especially for something if it's going to be used and knocked around a little bit. If you only have two surfaces like this that's doing all the bonding, it can break fairly easy. But if you have stuff kind of, lapped over each other in, especially more than one spot for more than one surface, then that makes a lot stronger bond overall. But sometimes you're not so lucky, so you just kind of do what you can. Figure that out. So, I'm going to do a fair bit of dremeling, just kind of rough things out. I'm going to do a lot of cutting on the inside here just to kind of see what all we're going to run into for fitting this part in. So stand by and feel free to just chat amongst yourselves for a little bit. Sorry for that big boring portion, but we're gonna have to do it again in a minute. However, I could go a lot quicker. Matt Becker. Normally a fan of the Alphasquawk front end, not seeing it looking right on this. Stock on the hand looks amazing. Thank you for the compliment on the stock, and also thank you for the criticism on the front end. I hope that once it's all done, that you may change your mind and say, oh, hey, I didn't see it going that way. Unless you've already seen what the earlier in the stream where we talked about what the plan was, in which case you're free to disagree. That's totally cool. I admire people who are willing to say, hey, I don't necessarily like that, because there's a lot of times I don't like things either. So that was not supposed to sound like snarky or rude. I'm just saying, like, that's cool. That's cool that, I mean, I like things a certain way, or I have certain pictures in my head, and I don't generally get offended when someone's like, you know, I don't like that picture in your head. Because that's fair. As far as the Stampede front, Stampede's a bit heavy. I think it would be, because it's a bit tall, unless you're talking about just like the muzzly part, which maybe, but because I have a artistic vision, quote unquote, for the front of this thing, that the Alphasquawk actually works out pretty well for, aside from just being the other half of the blaster that I cut off for this portion here. So hopefully that will start to make sense once the rest of these components start falling into place. General Flag, thanks for stopping by. Hope you get to stick around for a little bit. J. Rowe, good morning. And hello, Socks. And Mr. Engelstad. Dan, I'm not on vacation. This is my weekend. I now work weekends. And so Monday and Tuesdays are my days off, which I try to do nerfy things with what time I have. So, because I told in the last stream that I'd be focusing as much work on this as possible live, and I had a picture in my head, and I wanted to try some things. I wanted to make sure that I brought you guys along as well, instead of just saying, oh, by the way, I did a whole bunch of things last week, you know, when I stream next week and the thing's almost done. Just, you know, in the interest of full disclosure, I wanted to bring you guys along. And it's snowing outside, so sure as heck I'm not going out. And the Krager dog is cuddled up in the ugly chair, and he's not moving either. So I'm going to do some lopping on this real quick to bring it down into more along with this one, so we can get some kind of final fitting there, so we can start looking at the top part. And thanks for stopping in, Mr. Boomstick. Working on a knockout. Nice. Well, good luck. Alrighty. Logan Jerome, what up yourself? Just building. Not much else, just hanging out, making things, chatting. Do you have a cage lined up for this? If not, maybe one of the Daybreak offer machine version for the Modulus now. Honestly, Windlepoons. Gotta go, see you later. Alright, thanks for stopping by. Mr. Becker, I do not have anything lined up for this really at all. The goal of this build is to just take a more basic approach, just kind of a traditional style integration of just putting a stock and maybe something else on a thing instead of a full-blown Gestalt type integration for the purpose of actually completing something. And once the bodywork is done, I'm probably just going to sell it off. And so I have no plans for any cage or gimmicks or anything like that. I'm just going to do the basic bodywork and pass it off to somebody else who may have developed a liking for it and maybe has a vision in mind for it and says, ooh, I like what you're doing here. I would do this to it. And so they have now the option to do that. So that is kind of the plan of attack right now. Also the goal is to get this done like lickety-split in a couple of days before I grow a emotional attachment to it, which is the problem I have with a lot of my builds, is that, you know, it takes X number of years to go anywhere with it, and, you know, once you've been creating something that long, it's kind of hard to let it go. So the idea is to just do it, boom, here's a thing, do a good job at it, pass it off to somebody else who's a little more inspired by it. It's kind of a creative palate cleanser for me to just go through and be like, I did a thing, cool, kind of clear the mental creative debris out of my brain so I can go on to other projects with a fresher vision. Because I get cool ideas that are really big, and then there's the project creep where you go to build something, and then as you build it, it gets more and more complex until it turns into something huge. So the idea is to keep it rather simple and then pass it off to somebody else who can do whatever the heck they want to with it. If they want to just throw some paint and internals at it, cool. And if they want to go with some kind of LED stuff or add things to it or whatever, then that's their business. Cynical Steve, welcome back. Alpha, welcome aboard. Is it going to be solenoid driven? That is not for me to decide. I'm not sure how this thing's going to end, actually. Okay. Okay, kind of misjudged things just a little bit. As far as where this line needs to be versus where this line's going to end up. And because this line tapers, goes up just a little bit, I'm thinking if I shorten it a bit more, bring it in this way a bit more, then that might bring the line up kind of close to where it needs to be. Kinda. And then also still allows us to have this piece here, utilizing this and the screw port up here, and still have that that kind of hook jaw look. So that's still a win. I'm kind of actually considering doing some cuts here, since it's really going to be basic of just take this angle, cut it off here by the screw port, kind of closest-ish as possible, and start fitting that, just to make sure we don't trim this off too far and it just becomes another, similar orientation that it was before, because I want to have, like I said, have that kind of that hook jaw underbite. So I'm going to take a quick break from on this one. Do cuts on this one just to pull it in. We might be able to even utilize this thing as being shrouded. Still use it to kind of actually stabilize this a little bit. We'll know more once we get to cutting and start fitting things a little bit. But that'd be kind of a bonus, just because, like I said, it'd be kind of in there for support a little bit, and also for people that like having the cool vent port, whatever you call it, deal, is kind of nifty. So just gonna eyeball and just go like, that looks pretty close-ish. I said pretty close-ish, so. Yes, I think messy workbenches is just a nerf thing, apparently. Um, Anytime you see anybody showing pictures of whatever project they're working on or project they just finished, if you look in the background, there's usually just some kind of disastrous mess with like a clean spot about half the size of the blaster that's getting worked on. But I don't know. I'm not a slob, but I'm not a clean freak. And I mean, I like to keep the thing clean a little bit once in a while, just to kind of reset everything, put tools away. Kind of like I said, it's not like a cleanup; it's more of a kind of a workspace reset. Ed Roth, custom car builder back in the '60s and '70s and stuff like that, once said, "Messes don't scare me because I know they produce results." And he had a very artistic mind and personality. Made a lot of really wild stuff and made a lot of big messes in the process. But yeah, knowing that you don't create a mess by doing nothing, and yeah, looking back and saying, yeah, this thing's a mess, but look what was wrought because of the mess, is always a bit comforting. Okay, this isn't going to work out for us. So yeah, looks like I'll at least need to cut it off. Yep, that dude's got to go. Sorry, bud. So I reckon we'll just peel it off right there. Where's my saw? You know what? I was going to be civilized here, but we're just going to lop this off in a hurry. That old Roth saying actually used to have pinned up on the wall of the garage over there, but then my window leaked and it soaked that little poster thing and went the way of all the earth. And ironically, I can't find where it fell because the bench over there is so nasty and messy. Wait a minute. Ah, rats. Oh, I set myself up for that one. Okay, well, here we go. The thing that was actually locating this and keeping it held in place was the back end of this, which locked into a little tab back here, which I don't have anymore, so the barrel falls out. I should have just done with my initial gut instinct and just cutting the offending piece off. But part of me was like, oh, but this would be a cool piece to use on something else later. I'll try to save the whole darn thing. Well, see, if I'd used the razor saw, like I initially wanted to, my instinct, I could probably just stick this back super duper easy. As it is, well, boy, did I set myself up for that. Well, I just whip up a quick little batch of DevCon and tack that back in place, since it will be all covered up eventually and shouldn't really be noticeable. Just because it would be super nice to have that barrel tacked in place and held in place without having to build some other thing, since I kind of screwed myself over on that. So there's the deal, and my little stir stick is usually about a half dozen of those little plastic stir sticks kicking around, but I was smart one time and thought, I don't need all of these. Each new thing comes with a new one. So I threw them all away. Ha! There we go. Okay. I'll just let that hang out for a little bit. Did I finish the Mega Flywheeler yet? Which one? The big drum warthog or the Megafed one? Because the answer is like neither. And to know. Yeah, the MagFed hasn't really had anything done recently. It's super duper, super roughed out to the point that that's not even necessarily its final silhouette or anything. It just, I don't know. I need to do a lot of cutting, especially on the Mastodon side of things. Pull the bulges where the motor and everything else was, and pull them in a ways, and then just make individual motor covers. Because the whole body doesn't need to be so huge, because the width of the body was like augmented to kind of wrap around the drum. But since the drum's not there, I can pull that in almost like a half inch on either side, if I remember right, just in some spots, and it'll help blend in a whole lot better from the Atlas nose and the Centurion main body and stuff like that. But no, it's very just roughed out. Alrighty, J Ro, thanks for stopping by and hanging out for a little bit, and go do some adulting. Well, okay, I'm actually gonna have to do that here in a little bit. Get the laundry done before I have to go back to work tomorrow. Looks like the snow stopped. Maybe go let the Krager dog out and run around for a little bit, play with his ball. Depending on what the chat's doing, might go on a field trip and go play with the dog for a little bit, or I'll just kill the stream and call it a day. We'll see how it goes. Krager dog's still napping in the chair, so. Alpha, yeah, snow. We get this weird stuff. It comes around kind of seasonal-like. That it's kind of puffy, and it's really hard to explain if you never like experienced it personally. But it's just like frozen water, but not quite frozen. Yeah, kind of messy and sloppy, and it's no fun to play in or drive in or do anything else with. Yes, I'm being facetious. That's still a bit tacky. All right, 20 of you guys hanging out in chat, watching epoxy dry, basically. It is that boring. But at least we're not counting screws right now, so we got that going for us. still pretty soft. Well, once this DevCon cures up, we can trim that little extra tube off and go back to fitting this top piece. So once we know where the top piece is going to fit and how it likes it, we can go back to fitting the bottom jaw. Sorry, this is kind of the boring part, waiting for epoxy to dry, basically, but, you know, kind of these mundane sanding and filing activities is usually what I do when I'm watching somebody else's stream. So, I reckon until somebody else starts streaming, we're gonna play this game for a little bit. That's actually a valid point worth bringing up as well. Because my phone is currently precariously dangling above my head and I can't access it when I'm streaming, I don't know what's going on elsewhere in the community and stuff. And so if I'm streaming and have been streaming for a while, and somebody else in the community is trying to start a stream, let me know and I'll shut it down, because I don't want to want to make sure that I give bandwidth to everybody, so nobody's like, oh no, he's doing this thing, but so-and-so's doing this thing too. Because apparently Alice was going to stream last night, but was holding off for a while because I was streaming. And so if I had known that she was wanting to get on and do some streaming, then I would have shut down earlier instead of being on for what 3 hours or whatever it was. Yeah, yesterday. So yeah, if something else pops up, and like if I know Qualcomm usually does Saturdays, Bobo's been doing Sundays. Um, I can't recall what anybody else is doing, but if anybody else pops up and they're wanting to do a thing, and yeah, just let me know and I'll wrap it up. There's I can I can certainly share. No sense in dividing the audience. We're getting close, I think. Close enough, anyway. Okay. All right. Mr. Nathan, this is Wolfpack Nerf. Just wanted to say you've inspired me so much to do integrations. Oh, awesome. You've inspired me to build Tomuska, which ended up winning a Reddit competition. All right. Trying to remember what Reddit competition that was. Name sounds vaguely familiar, but man, I get so mixed up with even the names of my own projects. Well, I'm glad to have been a part of that. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. Much better. Much better. Okay, now we can see if this dude's gonna fit. No, still too much in the way. Oh, problems. Okay. Well, I underestimated just how narrow this piece was. So, it actually fits inside, which actually would have been cool to know before, because I could have left a little extra length in there and kind of sleeved it in. Huh. So if that fits there, and that fits like there. That's there. There. Still pretty serious disparity in the lengths there, which is a bit more than I really want. Ooh, just a second, let me clean my lap off. Got 12 pounds of orange dust. Okay, get a bit of a different view on here. Let me stand up. So that dude's like... jerk. Don't be a jerk, man. Trying to find junk on the table that's the appropriate size to hold things up so I can eyeball it. Yeah, that works. That dude fits like... See, I'm pretty happy with that. I do need to pull the bottom in a little bit. I know it's not seated up where it needs to be. There's a bit of trimming because of the amp angle here. But I do want to pull it in just a bit. You pull it back to about here, about a finger length. Not sure if I'll drop the top down anymore. Like I said, I don't want to have the stair step all the way down, which it's very minimal, so maybe that wouldn't be an issue. Probably no more once I start tacking things into place. Not super crazy about having the stepped rails, but you know, okay. Part of me was just kicking around the idea of removing all the bottom part here, this whole rail and this little support all the way to here. But that's a lot of length of that jaw on there. It would be relying on not a whole lot of material to hold it in place. And I think it would make it too tall. You'd have such a radical jump here, such a vertical line, which I really, 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 really don't. Shoot. What to do. What do you guys think? Am I going to enter the new thing? Or is that him? I am certainly not. Neoseeker. This is a continuation of yesterday's project, working mostly on the front end. Waiting for parts. Get rid of the Modulus rail. It's kind of the opposite. Which I reckon that would help clean up that line. So if this just came in here and we just eliminated this line here. Need to keep it to this point anyway for the screw for holding the battery door on. That would help. Just kind of kicking around the idea. I mean, I'm not crazy about... I mean, I'm never going to use a foregrip up here, and I'm never going to use a bipod for this thing. Could even trim off this part. Just right across here. To where you still have this piece here to flow in here, but then this part kind of hooks down and you just utilize that. We got options. I think I am leaning towards getting rid of this. I do need to peek inside and see if there's anything that shouldn't be. I mean, batteries here, motors, blah, blah, blah. We do have this screw port here, which is good. This will take care of this whole area here. We got this one taking care of this part. So if we eliminate this dead space, the worst problem we're going to have is just filling a hole, but we've filled holes before. That's no big deal. Boy, I'm really torn on, well, if we trim, there's really no clean way of eliminating this. If we could continue this line here through there, but then you have that screw port that kind of hangs down a little bit, and that'd be really, really awkward looking. I reckon we can start with taking this part off and just see how we feel after that. That might help balance things out. As far as you'd have more of a continuous line here flowing up through and then a rail, whereas having stepped rails. Good morning, Eddie. Thanks for stopping in. Cut through the rail. Block the rail is on. Ed, please explain yourself. Are you talking? Are you talking up here? Cut just the rail, the little lips off, and leave the smooth portion there. This kind of structural part, but eliminate the rail as a rail. Or are you talking strictly about this part here? Three-shot meteor barrel attachment. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah, Dan did a Modulus and tucked the mediator attachment that's got the little shotgunny air tank thing under there. Fitted up in there, and it fits like super dang clean. But I've honestly never seen one. I've never handled one, never played with one, never seen one in stores. I've considered a few times playing with them, but like I said, can never get a hold of one. And so I've never really considered one for a project since I'm not quite so sure about the dimensions. But I do believe they're bigger than I expect. But yeah, that would be kind of valid, but I don't think we could fit it up in there without affecting things here. And since it's kind of the primary, the idea is to keep this thing kind of long and lean and kind of aggressive looking that way. I want to try to reduce as much bulk as possible. Ed, you still there? Just you want to kind of clarify what you're talking about, the through the rail, the keeping the block. If you're still there, if you could clarify that, just so I kind of at least know we're on the same page, or if you're not thinking something wacky that I'm not thinking about. I do think I'm going to pull this in just a little bit, obviously because I can't lengthen the top. I should have cut a bit more conservatively there, but I did want to keep the screw port as close to the end of the blaster as possible, as close to the joint, just to kind of keep that secure. So we'll just have to pull this in accordingly. Was kind of hoping to keep the little barrel stub covered with this a little bit, but I think we can pull it back, and I think it'll all work out in the end. Dan, size pick for reference. If you sent something to me through my phone, then I can't see it right now. But I'll, as soon as the stream's over, I'll check that out and go from there. Oh yeah? The heck is this? Here's the neighbor guy. He's snow blowing the driveway. Have to thank him for that. Okay, gonna do a bit more tucking on this just to get this part in place and see how that changes the relationship here. Then I'll open the blaster up and see what's gonna take to cut this part out without affecting things inside. See how big of a hole it's gonna be. What? Yanni boy? Battery door screw port. Yeah, no, I think I'd probably cut it off here and just kind of cope around it a little bit and try to blend that in a little. Get the right angle. Yeah, Alpha, that's right. Probably just bring it down to this block here, you know, where it's got the slot, and then it goes, and then it runs into that thing. Probably just cut it off at that point, and then kind of bevel it off and trim it and make it look all nice. Okay. I was about to change bits and do some more fine tuning on this, but while I've got this one here, I'm going to go ahead and just let this dude off. Just because there's times where you don't want to change tools. Oh yeah, piece of cake. But just in case. Okay. Sister showed up, so I made food. That seems like a nice and appropriate thing to do, Ed. Good job. In that case, I assume that you and your sister have a good relationship. Or else I should assume that maybe the food you made her is not really good. Okay. Huh. Okay. There, I think that fixed a lot of things. So I think once this dude tucks up where he's supposed to be, up in that neighborhood, that line should come pretty nice and clean down through there. It's just not gonna. I think the top, I do need to pull it back just a little bit more. Just a bit more, just not even a quarter of an inch, I don't think. But that does fix the chin line and does make that look a lot better. I think instead of removing this altogether and dealing with that, I think it might be easier in the painting stage. Just if anyone's making notes or whatever, or if nobody wants it and I end up painting it myself, um, have this be more of a neutral color and then focus on the jawline, so to speak, if that's what we're calling it. All right. Ed, I feel like you're mocking me. Okay. So, now we can change tools here. Do a little more grinding to fit this lower jaw. fits in there pretty nice now. I think we're in the ballpark. However, I don't think we moved it in enough to make a real difference. Yes, yeah, I'd be happy with about like that. So yeah, I do need to pull it in a little bit more. So, okay. So the adventure continues. Getting close though, getting close though. You know, for a minute I was worried about having to shave off these logos, but the way it's going so far, we're just going to be cutting them off all the way anyway, so kind of a fun side bonus, I reckon. Okay, that might be acceptable. In fact, I might call that a day for today and shut the stream down, glue that in place, and let it sit for a little bit and let my brain percolate. Let's get this thing in the middle here. Okay. Oh, shoot. Still in a screen. Let's make a little more room here and see if we can scooch the whole way. Nope. Well, I had it there a minute ago. Okay, so down to 15 of you guys. All right. What do you think? Did we do a good thing? I think we did a good deal taking the lower rail off. Just need to kind of round that off and make it look natural like, fill in the holes. I think this ought to come together all right when we put all that in and fill it in. I think the top line is acceptable. Let me just mock this guy up real quick. I almost think if we did like a full top rail, like what I was thinking about before, it would make it a bit too boxy. But I do think it needs something. So we're just going to set that there kind of tentatively. And it'll tuck in a little better, maybe 1/8 of an inch lower. Or at least as low as possible, to where attachments will still kind of work. But I don't know. I like the look of the bottom jaw sticking out. Like I said, with the Barracuda theme, kind of going with that jutted lower jaw, hook jaw, whatever you want to call it. Pretty happy with that. Having the it looks like this line here, this top line where it hooks up, kind of blends in with this line right. This top line right here, which might work well in the end once everything's kind of this color, just kind of help tie everything together. I need a better thing to stand things on. No. So. Why do you have to complicate everything? Fine, I just need something taller. Not that tall. Not that tall. I just need a thing that's the perfect size for the thing I need it for. There we go. More or less. Need something that's not bright orange and looks like a thing. Alright. Anyway, this line here, coming across the top of the lower jaw, blends into this guy, which may or may not actually play a role in anything useful, but at least it's a thing. At least it's not awkwardly lining up with nothing at all. I do like how we do have the stair step where it comes down and down again, but then we have a slight step up, which kind of helps the relationship between this layer and this layer, or pop up again and makes it less stair steppy. You think that's too much jaw sticking out? I mean, that gives us it's a bit of an angle. I was laying more towards that. But at the same time, if I cut off too much more of this, it's going to be the barrel sticking out very obviously. But I do think it has. I think it gives the effect that we were looking for. Oh, the top rail look good. Scope mounted further forward in front of the jam door. We just undid that. And I think that would be. I don't. I don't care for that look, personal like. Especially it. I think it would make the lines very. You know, especially if we're going for just something kind of silly like this, not like a full blown scopity scope. I don't know if that helps anything at all. Would tuck in lower, be actually more like. Find some more small scraps of things to stick under other things. I don't know. Overall, pretty happy with it as far as the balance of things. I think adding the extra length up front helps balance out the stock. Removing the lower rail section there really kind of helps that transition across here and down naturally instead of having that box, which we really didn't remove that much material. But right there, I can feel the difference just taking that off. And once that's all smoothed over, that's going to be very noticeable without being. It's going to be a noticeable difference, but I don't think you will recognize what the difference is. You'll look at it and say, wow, why does that look so clean? But it's not something you could identify, which are always the best kind of modifications where you don't have to do anything radical, just a very well applied, subtle change. So, all right. Oh, not using the full dart tube. That's correct, but this thing is going to be wide open now, and instead of having the little side deals and the extra little additions here, I think it should be pretty good because it's basically a runway, so darts will probably more than anything want to drop, and it'll just glide over the top instead of having a lot of obstacles in the way. So I'm not expecting that to be an issue, but we'll see how it goes. So, 20 of you now. Thank you very much for everybody who joined in this kind of unexpected back-to-back stream, day after streaming, stream. Is the does the theme or does the name work with the theme? Is that pretty happy? Is everybody willing to go along with that, or does anybody have any arguments or anything like that? Like I said, probably glue that in place. Do you guys want to be involved with the DevCon part of things? I mean, once the final fitting is going on, or is that just going to be a bunch of boring puttying and then waiting and then sanding? Or do you want me to just kind of DevCon everything in place and then we'll fine tune from there and things like that? Or you're technically at work, or if you're eating your lunch at work, or whatever the case may be, I appreciate you guys willing to sacrifice that time and hang out for a little bit. It means a lot to me, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll talk to you later. Hey, want to go outside?